Here at the Warwick Farm circuit, we're going to see the race which, apart from the Tasman International, must be regarded as the outstanding race on the program. It's the Sports Cars Division 1, and in practice we saw Frank Matich driving the Matich SR3 Repco V8 do the incredible time of 1:28.1, which is 2.5 seconds better than the official record. And also Chris Amon in the Ferrari P4 V12 did 1:29.5, which was 1.1 better than the old record. Of course, records cannot be set in practice, but this gives some idea of the outstanding performance of these cars. Now we see car 3 on the grid. That's Neil Allen. He's also very fast. The Alpine Traco Chev V8, and inside him will be car 4, Chris Amon, and on the inside of it, completely at the front line of the grid, and there it is, this flying sports car, Frank Matich driving the Matich SR3 Repco V8. And with me again is Bill Bryce. And Bill, the performance of these sports cars must be amazing to you for a fellow who's come from overseas to see how fast they can go.
Yes, well, you know, sports car racing overseas, Norman, is very, very active at present. There's two main types of sports car racing. Looking at this, we would say this is Group 7 sports cars, mingled up with quite a few of the other type of cars that have a lot of things like the Super 7s, the little Elans that are around there, and things like this. But the main contenders for the race are based on the very, very successful Group 7 car. And over in Canada and America, they run the very, very exciting series of 6 races called the Can-Am races. This year it was won, or last year it was won by Bruce McLaren, driving the McLaren Mark 6, which is a very, very fast car. In fact, it proved to be one of the reliable. The car here that Amon is driving onto the grid now, car number 4, is one of Ferrari's long distance car racing. This is the car that they use for Le Mans, for the 24 hours race at Daytona, for the 1,000-kilometre race at Monza. In fact, this car was very, very successful there. Chris Amon is world renowned now as a winner of most of the long distance races in the world. This one today is only 10 laps. So it means that possibly Amon is at a slight disadvantage where you've got a car that's built for long distance races. It's a little heavier in the brakes, it's a little heavier in the suspension and things like this to take 24 hours of pounding around Le Mans, or 6 or 7 hours around the 1,000-kilometre race around Nürburgring or around Monza. Well, there's the 2 minutes to go sign, and we'll look at the front row. Or down, as we've mentioned to you, in pole position with a very fast time is Frank Matich. Frank went off to do the Can-Am series throughout Canada and America last year, towards the end of last year, gained some invaluable experience from looking at these very, very fast cars that the Americans specialise in, with Dan Gurney, Mario Andretti, and AJ Foyt, a lot of them there, all the Indianapolis drivers. They drive these big sports cars with 6 and 7 litre engines, though today Frank Matich is using a 4.4 litre Repco engine, an all-Australian engine. Goes extremely well. It's a V8 compared to the Ferrari, which is alongside of it. Chris Amon did a 1:29.5, and he's using a V12 4.2 litre engine. Amon, after a very, very hard drive in the International 100 race, didn't have a very happy time there with the Ferrari. With 1 minute to go, we'll look at the third car on the grid, and this is the car of Neil Allen's. It did a 1:32.1. This is what we call an Alpine Traco Chev V8. So that's quite a big name, but it's got a Chevrolet V8 Traco modified, and it's in an Alpine body, or an Alpine chassis. We've got the interesting cars behind. Is Ian Cook driving the Repco, the Alpine Repco V8, and alongside of him is Armour in the Lotus 23B Ford. This is a very nice little car, very neat, but I'm afraid a little outgunned on power here today. Poking its nose through there is another interesting car, is the Alfa Romeo TZ2. Once again, mainly made for a class win in long distance motor racing. Well, down on the front line now, we'll see them all watching the starter for the start of this. It's a 10-lap race, and it'll be who's off the line first. There's about 5 seconds to go now. They're starting to move. Look at, there goes Jane, and they're racing. Matich made a good start. Amon's going with him. Look at the front row. 3 cars. Amon, I think, might have just touched him there. Allen tucks him behind him, but he's after, they're all after Matich. Matich made it up a little bit on the gear change. They really dragged it off the line, and there it is, the SR3 Matich leading the way to the P4 Ferrari of Chris Amon. We'll look for them now as they come into the straight. And here they come, thundering into view now, up through the dip. It gives you some idea of the gradient that they pull up through here. And here's Amon looking to run down in the Ferrari. It was down on power last week, and already they're making a gap. They go into braking now. Round they go. You see the spare wheel tacked onto the back of the Ferrari. There's Matich, who knows his way extremely well around the farm, going well and clipping through the apexes once again. Amon tacking on behind him, right in behind him, and I think he's got quite a battle on his hands with this big car.
And in practice, to give you some idea of the quality of the drivers out in front, Matich did 128.1, Amon 129.5, Neil Allen 132.1. Well, a big gap then to the fourth qualifier, which was Ian Cook 135.4, then a further big gap to Muir 139.9.
A fine cockpit shot of Frank Matich going over the causeway. There's Amon clipping the edges, and you might look at the rear of Matich's car. You'll see the big spoiler up there. This is to counteract the very high speeds that the cars attain on the long straights. Where they get up, you'll see that you're coming in just behind the number one. You'll see how the tail sloops up there, and there's the spoiler glinting in the sunlight now. As here he comes across the complete lap one. Frank Matich going through now into the right-hander. Looking very, very neat indeed. Clipping the edges, getting the weight transferred, and there's Amon right in behind him there in the P4. Amon could only, in his practice lap yesterday for the Tasman Championship of 100, he did a 128.2 with a very, very sick engine, mind you. And here's a good battle going on between Neil Allen going through past Ian Cook. Allen in the white car, number 3, the Traco V8, showing the way now to the Repco engine car of Ian Cook. He's in a Repco V8. But he's tacking on behind him. You see there once again the characteristic, the aerodynamic shaping of these cars. Both of them Alpine chassis. Alpine we mean the bodywork and everything. And they're using, one using a Chevrolet V8 engine and the other a Repco Brabham. Well, at least I'm sorry, a Repco. Here they come now, coming in across the causeway. But a long way back behind the leaders where the battle is really on. 3, Neil Allen. He's in 3rd place at the stage. We'll just watch his line through this corner, setting it up. There he is, but coming through. Cook it was on a better line.
Now, while we're watching these two, the leaders, that's Matich and Amon, are over at the top of the straight. And the point here that in the racing car event, the International, the front line was 127.4, 128, 128.2. And here's Frank Matich, who did a 128 in practice, which would be fast enough to be on the front line of the Tasman International motor race. It gives you an idea of how fast he is in this sports car. But he's not too far ahead of Amon. Amon now would only be, there he is, or perhaps 50 yards behind him, and Amon's making a real race of this.
Yes, when you take into account, though, Norman, that these are 4-litre engines as compared with the 2.5-litre engines in the Tasman cars, they're handling just as well, there's no doubt about that. They're braking in as deep as they go. They're fairly light cars, and they're really going quite well. But here's Chris Amon, and he's turning on it. Very nice battle here indeed. This is going back for the minor placings here. We can see the 3rd and 4th cars. Neil Allen in car number 3. There you can see it weaving a little bit on braking, just as he sets it up, a little wide. Cook looking a lot neater into the corners, but hasn't got the power, obviously, as the white car in front of him. But here's a fine shot of the Ferrari number 1, setting sail down the pit straight. There it is, you can see the rear wheel tacked on the back just visibly there. Car number 4, the P4 Ferrari of Chris Amon, and right in front of him and in his sights is Frank Matich, and they're making a real battle of it as they already start to get in amongst the tail enders. Here they are coming down Hume Straight now, and I would think at around about 130 to 140 miles an hour. And there they are on braking. You can see the marker boards flashing by them as they go in to 200, 100 yards from the corner. Coming out, you'll see them clip the edge on that side, then chop across the corner again. Matich going extremely well. Sydney Sider, Frank Matich, showing the way now in his own car of his own manufacture. And 24-year-old New Zealander Chris Amon right in behind him in the Works Ferrari P4. Matich's car considerably lighter, and here he is trying to work this now get the slower cars in behind on the braking area, and this has happened quite successfully. Amon having to go wide, going over the causeway. Matich could get a wee bit out here. There's Amon, see, he's right out through there, passing one of the slower Lotus Elans, and there's the third and fourth car coming around behind, just as on about quite a way behind the leaders. There's the Ferrari under full power now, going down, using about third, braking it up, setting it up for the corner, steering it through. You can hear the howl of the V12 engine as through it goes, but it's Frank Matich who's just gone through to complete his third or fourth lap now, as through he goes in car number 1. Matich looking a little ragged that time coming out of the corner. He clipped the edge on the left-hand side of the screen. Now here he goes, they're starting to work the traffic now, and this is where it becomes very, very important. You'll see them dive in there, and once again Amon's missed the jump through not just being up close enough, getting the way through, but it's still that little bit he's got to wait for that slower car to get through the corner. Matich once again out in front in car 1.
And no change in order of the next two. The gap is increasing now between Matich and Amon. It's about half a lap now back to car 3, that's Neil Allen, and car 2 is Cook, is it? Yes, he's up there in 4th place, but the gap between the first two and the next two is quite considerable, just around about 45 seconds now, although about 2 laps ago it was only about 10 seconds. So it's obviously a race between these two, and here's one of the other cars. This is a Brunninghauser, and that's an interesting
Max
sports car.
Brunninghausen going through in the little Alpha. You can see the stoplights working. This is a very sleek body, aerodynamically shaped, not terribly pretty, but it's made for a purpose. It's a sports racing car, and this is it mainly for class wins in long distance races, but he's throwing it around here in wild abandon and having a grand old dice there with one of the Elans tucked in behind him. In fact, it could be a bit of a change here coming on. Here he comes, left-hand drive of this car, and through he goes, setting it up. You can see the square chopped off back of it to give it that stable feeling. Shot of them swooping around through the right hand, and here's the two leaders again. And look, Amon is closed up. He's now within, I would think, around about 10, 12 feet away from Matich. And through they go into the corner. Yes, this is where the duel is definitely here between these two very, very capable drivers, and they're having a grand battle indeed. Good style shot there of Chris Amon going through with the rear wheel tacked on the back, looking immaculate, sitting in there, steering this big car with, they've got in excess of 400 brake horsepower, which is an awful lot of power to have on this very, very tight circuit. Matich once again looking very comfortable, but there's Amon right in behind him now. They had a fabulous race together. Whoa, that one must have been close. Chris Amon really cutting it fine, but everything under control. He just put the power on at the right time, picked it up off of that Armco fencing, and was away with it. There he is under power again.
And looking now, Bill, at the Amon's car, the back of the car has that sort of aeroplane impression. It reminds me, you were talking about racing in America. The chaparrals over there carry the stabilising wing at the back on top of the cars. You see the high back of this car. Is this a reason for the stability they use, this modern American invention where they actually have this bat wing at the back like an aeroplane to hold them on the ground? Have you seen those cars?
Oh yes, what you're discussing now is the chaparral, the 2F chaparral with the stabiliser wing, which actually is a complete wing over the top of the car. And what it is, it's mounted onto the suspension. And what they can do is by altering this wing, they put the weight back onto the suspension, keeping the rear wheels on the ground. Well, there's Matich going through, and look at how close that Ferrari is to him now, Norman.
Yes, my point there was I was looking at the back of Amon's car, just for me an unusual sort of design. It has that high back, and it seems to be much wider at the back as he travels away from us. Is this a stabilising effect on the suspension of the car?
Oh yes, this is, as I say, this is the streamlining. You can see it glinting on the Matich car now. This is a adjustable. You can set it up if you like.
1:29 exactly, 1 minute 29, which must stand as a new lap record for sports cars. His old record was 1:30.6. He did a 1:28.1 in practice. That will not stand because it's unofficial, but now an official 1:29. So Frank Matich has created a new lap record, and that would suggest too that Chris Amon must be better than the previous figure.
It must be getting very near to being an outright lap record, Norm. I don't think there's many of the single-seater cars. In fact, I think it went to Jack Brabham, who apparently did quicker than a 29, or he did a 29 dead. But this would have to be be confirmed, of course. But this must be very, very near an outright record. Well, let's pick them up again as they're coming down towards us. A very fine shot. Show you the aerodynamics of both cars. Amon's car a little bit wider. And there's Frank Matich treading very lightly on it. It's a very tricky corner down there. But then he gets on the power again and he swoops through these sweeping curves where he can take them at speeds of around about 75, 80 miles an hour. Then down the short straights it accelerates and brakes very hard. A very, very testing circuit on car and driver.
And to give you an idea of speeds, with Frank Matich doing a lap of 1:29, we'll take that and convert that to miles an hour. 1:29 is equal to 91.01 miles an hour. 91.01. Well,
Hello.
90 miles an hour or plus on this course, which is 2¼ miles, very tight. That's an amazing effort.
Well, now, while we've been looking at those lap times, I can't see the Ferrari in view. So we've got to look for the Ferrari now because he's nowhere in view. Amon is missing in the Ferrari, somewhere on the circuit. Here he is coming through now, quite a bit slower, and he's making a pit stop by the looks of things. So we'll see just what is wrong with the car. Chris Amon coming into the pits. And there's the Scuderia Veloci mechanics. He's taking his goggles off. In fact, he's undone his seat belt. Something wrong with the car, definitely. Talking to Chief Mechanic Bob Atkin down there in the pits, having a look around to see what is wrong. So it's still Frank Matich.
Well, after that, Frank Matich is so far in front he could almost freewheel his car across the line from here. He would be almost all 3/4 of a lap in front of the car in second place, which probably is Neil Allen. Neil Allen in car 3 was holding second about a lap ago. Ahead of car 2 is Ian Cook, but the margin between them is a great deal there. It's a long gap now with Matt Amon out of the race. And here's 3, that's the second place getter now, Neil Allen. That's the Elfin Traco Chev V8.
Yes, here he comes now. And I wonder just where Ian Cook is, who was behind him. He would have moved up into second place now, or Neil Allen going into second. And Cook we're looking for. Cook was driving the Alpine car number 2, which they were having a very close dice earlier on in the race. But Neil Allen seems to be out on his own quite a way now.
And I see it looks like they're reaching now. I thought they were going to reach for the checkered flag. I think there'd be a lap and a half to go. I would say that Matich now is on about the 9th lap. He'd have one more to go after this one, according to my calculations. But we'll confirm that as soon as we see the checkered flag.
Hello, something wrong.
In fact, the checkered flag is coming out now.
Yes, what is it? Yes, Matich holding his hand up, possibly just to acknowledge and wave to someone to get past them. But it looked like he was going to stop, or it looked like a stop signal. But he's still going extremely quick, so he must be okay. Obviously just acknowledging the other drivers moving out of his way. With the pressure off him now, through the right-hander over the northern crossing. Setting himself up now for the causeway, which he has to do a long way out. He has to be on the right line to get through this corner. And here he is looking at the corner, setting it up. Car moving very nicely across. Round it comes. Good action shot of him going across the causeway. Clipping the edge. You can see the high rear vision mirror. That's the thing sitting up on the left of his head, which he looks up. It sits up there on a big stalk. And the checkered flag is out, and round into the finishing straight comes Frank Matich from Sydney. Down he comes now. The checkered flag is held out to him. And we're now looking for the second car on our reckoning, who is in second place, which would be number 3, Neil Allen, the White Elephant. Into Polo Corner he comes now. Swinging away in fine style. He's moved up into second place with the retirement of the P4 Ferrari of Chris Amon. Swinging around now. Neil Allen crossing the line. And he's on his run-down lap.
And here it's the,
it's the third car just crossing the line now in front of us, which was the Bob Jane entry, driven by Ian Cook. But here's the crowd's applause down the bottom corners there as through he goes.
So the result of the Division 1 for sports cars, the winner and new record holder for Warwick Farm, Frank Matich, in car number 1, the Matich SR3 Repco V8. Second was car number 3, N. Allen, the Elfin Tracker Chev V8. And third, car number 2, I. Cook, Elfin Repco V8. And bad luck for Chris Amon, who challenged Matich all the way to drop out of the race with less than 2 laps to go. So the winner, Frank Matich, the Matich SR3 Repco V8, to end the sports cars for Division 1 here at Warwick Farm.